ratify the Council in May by verbal affirmation. If we members can say agreed. Thank you. And apologies for absence. I have none. And item 3, declarations of interest. Do we have any? No. Thank you. And if I can again seek approval for the minutes of the previous meeting held on the 19th of March 2024, if we can have verbal agreement again, please. Thank you. And item 5, to consider any items that the chairman agrees to take as urgent business. I have none. So moving on to item 6, the internal audit annual report 2023-24. I'd start by inviting Louise Duffield to introduce this item, please.
Thank you, Chairman. And we welcome Deeksha and Ben for their first audit committee. You'll note in the report that Mazars is now Forvis Mazars, and at the same time, Wan, who you'd met many times, has been lucky enough to secure a promotion. So we welcome Deeksha and Ben as our new colleagues, and they've been working with us for several months now, although this is their first committee. You'll note that in the annual report, we're pleased to see the moderate opinion. In audit, nobody ever gets top marks. That's not quite how audit usually works. So we're very proud of that, and we're proud of the movement in the number of priority and high priority and medium priority recommendations. I think we've noted for the second year in the report that we are trying to get the very best value that we can out of this contract. So we aren't auditing the same things every year and giving ourselves a pat on the back. We are using it to help us continually improve our services. And so some of the HR audits have been particularly interesting, and that's why we've looked to reconsider one of them, because we've wanted to seek Mazars' support in implementing new systems and processes and getting that external validation rather than just a tick box exercise. So beyond that, Chairman, I don't know if you wanted to invite Deeksha, I think, is going to speak on this one.
Yes, please.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Louise. Thank you, Chair. So Louise very well summarised the report for you, but I'll take the paper as read, but I'll still highlight some key points from this report. So as Louise mentioned, the report summarises our internal audit work, which was undertaken during the course of the year. So that's the 23-24 plan and any subsequent reports that were issued at the back of it. The plan was agreed in Feb 2023 and for a budget of 230 days. But as you may see in section 1 of the report, a lot of changes were made to the plan. I won't go through them in detail as they're there, but happy to take any questions on them after we're done. All the audits that we did undertake were delivered and finalised within the year. And for this time around, we've included one-page summary reports of those audits in the pack, so welcome to have a look at those. So in summary, as Louise said, we've given yourselves a moderate assurance rating again this year. We've also highlighted in our benchmarking section in section 4 of our report that there has been a shift in assurance ratings where there are more moderate and limited assurance ratings for the individual reports. But as Louise mentioned, it's because of our shift in looking at the different areas of audits and not just focusing on those cyclical financial audits, for instance, and really using internal audit services to target on areas which require improvement, which is good, which is how it should be used. And it's also in line with other local authority councils that we work with in terms of the overall assurance rating. So it's on par, and that's reflective of that approach. I think that's all I have to say on the paper, so happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions, members? I'd like to compliment you on the report. It's particularly good to have a bit more detail about what the actual issues are involved.
Thank you.
And it's good to hear the positive response from management in terms of the internal audit is adding value to our processes. For me, I noticed there's particularly one high priority finding regarding IT, disaster recovery and resilience, but I know Simon's here tonight. Perhaps you could comment about that and give us a bit more detail there, please.
Sorry. Thank you, Chair. Yes, certainly. So on the resilience recommendation, it's very much welcomed. One of the things that we've been doing, and members will be aware of, we have an overall strategy that is around the procurement of our line of business systems. So those are large systems, things that like manage revenues and benefits, planning and so on. And as a small council, where we have those line of business systems that we support, we have a whole series of incident response mechanisms and strategies. So we have data backups, 3 or 4, depending on what the system is. We have an ability to spool up those systems live. However, if we wanted to develop another system that was effectively live at the same time as Revs and Bens, what we'd need to do was build a parallel infrastructure off-site. We'd have to get licenses to do that and the expertise to do that and manage that. So to give you some indication of what that would cost for a Revs and Bens system in revenue terms, that would be somewhere around £500,000. And for a planning system less than that, around 250,000 in revenue. So that's why we've adopted the strategy of procuring those line of business systems in the cloud, where that resilience is then within that contract and by that supplier. So let's look at Revs and Bens. We have Civica, where that implementation is happening this month, will be in place by September. They have resilience in that they have a number of servers all around the country and can spool that up live. And we also have incident response strategy, so we also have the data as well as they do. So we have multiple measures to spool up those systems. Our ability, and then we've also, as you know, we use Office 365, Teams, etc., and that's already in the cloud, already has resilience. So in terms of our digital strategy, how that links to procurement, how that also links to disaster recovery, we've got a clear strategy that we're implementing to do that, that uses the best that we can get within the market, but also is affordable for us. The other aspect to that is only part of the story about disaster recovery. There's also the work, it's not solely a digital function. That is about the technology and how you recover your data or use your data, or how quickly services can go live back up if there's been an attack, for instance. We also work with services around what are their disaster recovery plans, what are their plans around resilience as well, because they're not always all digital. So that's part of the overall strategy linked to how we manage risks. The final thing that I'll talk about is that we have procured this in the last 4 months, the incident response service. So all of our systems are monitored live off-site, and they can respond immediately to close down any attacks, so that we've got, if you like, a number of measures and layers that mean that we've got good resilience within our system. So that service and that technology that allows us to both resist attacks but also maintain the good functioning of our digital systems is just one key layer. So we reduce the risk of attack, reduce the risk of vulnerability, and then we're also able to spool up those systems because we have procured them in the cloud, and that's part of the contract we have. And then we obviously test that, and we test that with our suppliers. I'm sorry if that's too technical.
No, that's fine. Thank you, Simon. Can I just ask, just confirm what is actually held internally? We have an internal data centre that we manage, and then various cloud-based services.
We do, yes.
And in terms of that internal data centre, that covers what services?
Well, that covers that we back up all our data there as well. It also is backed up off-site, but this is more about the systems that run. So the software, if you like, around Revs and Bens.
Yes.
And that's run on servers within our server room there.
And
that's being moved to the cloud.
So the long-term strategy is to move all services to the cloud.
Yeah.
And at the moment, do we have any, in terms of servers and replication, real-time replication, for
We do.
example, within the
We do.
existing servers. So there's some assurance there about if a single service failed, for example, that would automatically be backed up in real time anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. And also what we've done is some members will be aware that as part of our digital infrastructure programme, we have our own fibre. So when we worked with the government to introduce fibre in and around the district, we have a number of fibres that are our own, and we have a direct fibre connection that is just ours, that goes from the server room to the Brighton Digital Exchange. And we like that, and it means no one else shares that fibre. And that's critical for very sensitive, highly secure data like revenues and benefits data. That's only something we've been able to bring on relatively recently in the last 2 months, because we've been waiting for that to be available to us through our own supplier. But also we had to make choices about whether we choose to light that fibre ourselves or choose to buy that as a service.
Okay, thank you. That's reassuring. Any other questions, members? If we can move on to the vote then, if we can ask members to support the recommendation. If you can vote, please. Thank you. That's 5 in favour. Moving on to the item 7, the internal audit progress report. And again, if Louise, if you could introduce, please.
Thank you, Chairman. So, as members will have noted, this is the lightest report in the pack because it's an update on a programme that only began a couple of months ago, but it's hopefully sets out how we'll be bringing these update reports to each committee so that you can sort of see where we're going and that things are on track. So, at this stage, it's all in the planning phase, but I'm happy to take any questions, and I don't know if Ben, I think, was going to cover this report. That's okay, Chair?
Please, if you could.
Yes, thank you. So yes, I'll cover the progress for the 24-25 year. So in relation to the 24-25 audit plan, we have actually commenced the first audit of the year at the end of Q1, this being in relation to HR, sickness absence and annual leave at the council. This is currently progressing through our internal audit quality review process and should be issued in draft shortly. We do have 3 audits scheduled for Q2, with the procurement card audit commencing this week, yesterday in fact. We've also begun to reach out to relevant audit sponsors and key contacts for scoping calls for the remaining 2 audits of the period. Finally, we have also included a recent thought leadership theme relating to the introduction of the new Procurement Act, with the main takeaway being the need for public sector organisations to begin planning for its implementation and changes that come with this. And we also do have a report highlighted through our website as well. And as before, I'm happy to take any questions as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Any questions from members? Okay, well, it's reassuring that we're moving audits around to give best value rather than just blindly carrying on. And it's pleasing that you've got the flexibility to do that. So we'll look forward to those reports. So thank you. Thank you. And if you want to leave now, you're welcome. Thank you for coming. So moving on to item 8, oh, sorry, yes. We just need to vote to support the recommendations, please. Okay, that's 5 in favour. Thank you. All right, we'll move on to, yeah, is that okay?
Have you,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
has it registered your vote?
We have 5, there's 6 members present, so.
Do you want to give us your verbal view? Yes. Are you
Thumbs
comfortable
up.
doing that?
Thank you, so that's 6 in favour, sorry.
We'll get you reset in the interlude.
So moving on to item 8, review of Treasury management activity. And again, Louise, if you can introduce, please.
Yes, so we're delighted to welcome Joel back, especially when he brings a report of such good news for us. So thank you. Just a reminder to members that this is a look back in time to the last year. And so I know that we agreed some adjustments to our policy to further prioritise ESG requirements, and you'll start to see that in the next report. But this report looks back up to the period ending the 31st of March. It is, of course, quite a technical report, but I'm sure Joel will be able to explain any of it that members wanted to dig into in further detail. I think the report speaks for itself. We're in good shape. It is a point in time, so you might notice movements, imbalances and so on, but it's really about the date we pick a snapshot. So there's nothing hugely interesting to report. It's all going very well. But Chair, I don't know if you wanted to invite Joel.
Yes, please, if you're Joel.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Louise. Not much more to add, really, other than obviously happy to address any questions from my colleagues from Mid-Sussex. As Louise said, I think it's been a fantastic year for Mid-Sussex as a council in terms of treasury management. You've been a great beneficiary of increased market rates, and obviously aren't exposed on the lending side. So that's a position to enjoy as a council, but also I would say to protect, in my opinion. Other than that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions from members? Yes, sorry, Carol.
I really just want to understand a little bit more around the the minimum reserve provisions. So my understanding is we've got no borrowings. We've got a finance lease which is being capitalised, and we're reflecting the borrowing as a liability. But we are making a £400,000 provision within the revenue accounts. Can you tell me a little bit more about how that will be treated if it's not required? How does it get released if it is not proven that we need that provision?
Thank you, Councillor. I think that's more an accounting question, so perhaps it's more appropriate that Rachel answers it rather than actually Treasury Management.
Okay.
So Rachel, please, if you could.
Thank you. Yes. So hopefully I've got the gist of the question correct. Yes. If we don't require it, then we release our MRP provision. So at the end of the leases, certainly in terms of the accounts, that would no longer be required and be reported.
Okay. Thank you for confirming.
Yeah, that's okay.
Thank you. Any other questions? I should say, I think 4 million in income from Treasury Management is very positive, and thank you. And some of the interest rates that you've obtained are extraordinary in terms of over 6%. It certainly looks positive for the coming financial year as well. So thank you for that. So if we can support the recommendation, please, members. We got, is that? Yeah. Well, it's a yes anyway, so 6 in favour, thank you. And Joe, if you want to go now, then thank you very much. So moving on to the item 9, the external audit, provisional audit plan. And Louise, again, if you can introduce, please.
Thank you, Chairman. And similar to the situation with Mazars, we welcome Hassan with his first audit committee with us. You'll remember when Kevin and Katie came to speak to us, we were being reallocated in their provision of resources, and so we've now moved to the Manchester and Birmingham team, so working with Hassan and his team. I'm sure he'll go on to talk about this, but we spoke to you at the last committee about the backstop and about the reset in the audit sector. I think, you know, speaking plainly, due to the calling of a general election, that legislation was never passed or dealt with. And so whilst we are all working diligently, assuming that that 30th of September deadline will be there, I think we need to see what happens in the King's speech tomorrow and see what the new government's programme of legislation is. So, members, I may be coming to you and saying that the Audit Committee on the 10th of September may need to be moved, but I think it's prudent both for the audit sector and for us as a council to work to those deadlines, and if they slip, we won't be caught out. So I apologise if I've stolen any of your thunder there, but I think it's important that we understand that we are in a state of flux and we wait to see how high up Rachel Reeves's priority list that piece of legislation is.
Thank you, Louise. Hassan, thank you for braving the M25 and good to see you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Nice to be here. So we have our provisional audit plan on the agenda. I won't take you through all of the report as a page turner, but just run through the executive strategy, as Louise has said, on page 5 of the report, and then further on in the report we provide some details about the local government proposed reset of the audit market, and as Louise just outlined, the whole sector's waiting for guidance in terms of what the next steps may be and what implications there may be for the backstop dates that had provisionally been communicated. Within the overview of the strategy, we do provide an outline of the risks that we've identified during the planning stage of the audit, and providing just a summary of what those risks are. Members may be familiar with the risks from previous audit plans. So the first two relate to the misstatements due to fraud and error and the risk of revenue and expenditure, fraud in revenue expenditure recognition. Both of those risks are risks which are presumed under international standards on auditing. The third risk which we have is the valuation of third risk is valuation of investment property. We identify that as a significant risk because it's a large figure on the council's balance sheet. It is a figure which is informed by the use of management specialists, and judgments are used in terms of assessing the valuation at year end, similar to the valuation of land and buildings, which is the sixth risk, which is identified on the summary page there. The fifth one relates to the pension asset valuation. Again, a large balance on the council's balance sheet, and one which is informed through the use of management specialists, that being the pension fund actuary. And also in recent years, the pension scheme has moved from a net liability position to a net asset position. The last risk, which is outlined on that summary page, relates to opening balances. We wouldn't normally have this as a risk, but this is in respect of the reset, which I've mentioned previously, and as part of our strategy as a firm, as Kevin would have communicated at a previous meeting of the committee, our intention is to disclaim the 22-23 opinion of your 22-20 opinion on the 22-23 financial statements. As a result of that, there are issues which we need to consider in relation to opening balances, and one of the areas where the sector is waiting for guidance from regulators relates to what auditors will be expected to undertake in the situation where there has been a disclaimed opinion, and particularly in relation to opening balances. So that's one of the areas which the sector is currently waiting for guidance on. We provide details of the materiality levels which we'll be using in undertaking the audit, and also the threshold at which we'd report any differences, uncorrected misstatements to the audit committee. The first materiality level, the planning materiality, that's our overall materiality which we use for the purposes of determining whether any issues have an impact on our true and fair opinion. The second materiality level, which is highlighted there, the performance materiality, that predominantly drives our testing strategy and our sample size selection. The next area which I'd just bring to your attention relates to on page 12, where we highlight our responsibilities in respect of value for money. So we've got responsibility to look at the arrangements which the council has in place, and we look at the arrangements against criteria which is defined by the National Audit Office, and it's broadly comes under 3 criteria: financial sustainability, governance, and improving economy and efficiency and effectiveness. Kevin will have reported on the arrangements for 22-23. There were no significant weaknesses which were identified as part of the work which we undertook for the 22-23 audit, which is a good position to be in. And before I stop and take any questions, just want to kind of note that on the appendix, the fees are set by the PSA, so that is the scale fee, which has been set for the audit of Mid Sussex, and on the table it does refer to millions, so apologies for that error, it should just be in pounds. But happy to take any questions which members may have.
Thank you, Hussain. Any questions for members? Yes.
Thank you, Chair. With regard to the auditing of the opening balances, which is obviously a new element for this particular audit, will you be producing a statement of misstatements on that as a separate exercise, or will it all be sort of combined into one?
So it's
Hassan, I'm going to take that if that's okay.
Sure.
Sorry. I'll let Hassan come in, but I think in defence of, in particular, Rachel and her profession, it's really important to clarify what Hassan said there, because it's probably the single biggest topic of debate around this reset. Yes. So the phrase disclaimed opinion will have everybody having kittens, because it usually means something quite different. And so there is genuinely much debate about what the accompanying words come with that, because we will want a real clarity that this is not unique to us. This is not actually about our accounts. This is the sector needs to not do as many audits in order to catch up. So it doesn't really mean anything. And so from EY's point of view, they won't have that assurance on the opening balances, so they are similarly wanting to ensure that they are not held accountable for things being rolled forward. Right. So it's a linguistic game to make sure that in trying to create capacity in the sector, everybody's clear what's actually going on and the words are really carefully agreed. So I hope that helps, and Hassan, obviously contradict me if you would like to, but I think that context is important.
Thank you. Thank you, Louise. So won't contradict anything you've just said there, but just add to what's been outlined. So in terms of opening balances, we would always usually have undertook procedures on opening balances. That's one of the basic tests that we do, but we wouldn't normally identify it as a risk area. The reason it's being identified as a risk area, because as Louise has outlined, there's been a proposed to have a disclaimed opinion for 22-23, not a position which is going to be unique to Mid Sussex, and hence, as Louise has outlined, that's one area where the sector as a whole are asking questions, what does that mean? And if any members would have attended any of the consultation roadshows which were held by DLUC as they were then, and the FRC, you'd have heard that being raised as an issue, and the members of those two organisations, when they were considering those issues, they were outlining some of the thought processes that they would need to go back to, and the guidance that that should be coming in relation to that.
Thank you. And I suppose until we get the regulations in full, we don't know the actual formal wording and any other requirements that might come with that.
Yeah, that's correct, Chair. So when we when we do know what the form of wording would be for the disclaimed opinion, then we will share that with officers and members.
Thank you. Any other questions? I think it's worth noting that you talked about materiality, but rather frightening figures of 1 million. But I notice you are reporting any audit differences, and the figure there is much lower at 68,000, which should give us comfort. And it's also worth noting, as you say, the audit fees have been reset. So there's a threefold, I think, increase in the fees. That's not necessarily an issue in terms of it's part of this reset for the accounts in terms of auditors aren't attracting the staff. That's my understanding, but perhaps you could confirm that.
So the PSA recently ran a procurement exercise. I think it's probably just coming up to 18 months or 2 years ago now, and the fees that have been outlined for for the council in terms of scale fee variation are as a result of that procurement exercise which they ran. So it's based on the quotes which they got in. They plug it through whatever sausage machine they have, and they come out with that as a scale fee for the for the council.
Thank you. Any other points? We can move on to support the recommendation then, and thank you for your attendance, Hassan. Okay, and 6 votes in favour. Thank you, and Hassan, if you want to return to the M25, thank you. And right, just and finally moving on to item 10, the Audit Committee Work Programme. Louise, if you can.
Yes, so members will see that we have currently 2 scheduled audit committees. I mentioned earlier that the one on the 10th of September, we may come back to you as a result of that legislation, and we can already see that we've got a quite meaty agenda for the November meeting, and we will be doing our annual Christmas event of Treasury Management Training, which we'll seek to do a date for. So, yes, just bear with us if we have to make some changes due to legislation. Hopefully that's straightforward.
Thank you. Any questions? If we can move on to the recommendation and vote accordingly, please. 6 votes in favour. Thank you. And finally, item 11, questions pursuant to Council Procedure Rule 10.2, due notice of which has been given. I have none, and therefore I end the meeting at 7:30. Thank you.